After a successful decade run as a feature documentary, Eyes of the Mothman is now a podcast containing bonus information and, for the first time ever, the complete, unedited field interview tapes with eyewitnesses, experts, and those who were directly impacted by the Mothman incidents that occurred in Point Pleasant, West Virginia in 1966 and 1967. Although this podcast is meant to act as a historical record and an archive of the events that transpired, all material contained here is not for reproduction without the written consent by the copyright holder, Redline Studios, Incorporated. Episode 17 of Eyes of the Mothman brings us to Faye Leport, who is one of the eyewitnesses of Mothman that we interviewed for the film. What do you guys remember about Faye?
I remember her talking about the glowing red eyes quite a bit. I remember her giving pretty vivid details about eyewitness. I mean, she is to me the quintessential Mothman eyewitness. Like, all you have to go on with her is the faith that she is telling you the truth. You know, she's not a scientist. She's not an investigator. She's not a professor. She's not any of those things. She's just a witness. And that's when you get to where, once you establish all of this stuff with those scientists and historians and such, now you're getting to the witnesses. And so now you have to just take them on faith. That's what I believe.
Yeah, I will say with Faye, just like with Merle, I discussed with her sighting on camera, off camera, on the phone, and it did never change. No details of her story ever changed. And she had very, very specific, vivid details. She was very young at the time of her sighting, but it was a sighting that happened in a car with her brother. But it was not like a glimpse in the sky far away. This was like the Mothman was right on top of their car, was right next to it. She saw it, according to her, literally, within a 6-foot distance. So it was a very up close sighting. It also, I remember, if I remember correctly, her story was also that the Mothman was running alongside the car or next to the car when she witnessed it at very close distance. And then the bird flew over their car. They were in the TNT plant, and her brother, who was driving, pulled the car over to the point where they saw it perched up on top of one of those structures, and he literally was like throwing rocks at it. So it's just funny, and it's weird. Like, when you hear someone tell stories like this, I feel like if they're going to make it up, you probably don't make it as detailed. If I'm going to make something up, I'm going to keep it pretty vague. I saw the Mothman had red eyes. It flew over the car. But her story was very much just very, very specific to where you start to go, either she's an incredibly good liar or she really did see something, witness something, and her story hasn't changed. And you know what? I know that Faye has done other documentaries and interviews and stuff since, and her story has never changed throughout the years. The one thing I think working against her a little bit is that she was very young when she saw the Mothman. But outside of that, it was a very specific and detailed eyewitness account. She was not someone that was featured in the John Keel book, which I kind of liked that we had, a different Mothman witness. She was probably so young at the time that it kind of got skipped over or missed. But she had a very specific account of what she witnessed and saw. And, little parts of her story stood out to me that I thought was interesting. Just the fact that she said that her brother had pulled the car over and the Mothman's sitting up perched far away, and they're like, he's throwing rocks at it, very, what a very West Virginia thing to do. Instead of like being scared at it, he's like, I'm going to kill this thing. I can't remember how old she said she was, but she was.
I think she was 14.
No, I think that's too old. I think she was younger than that.
Younger than that?
I think so. I could be wrong. Maybe she'll explain it in the interview tape, but I just remember she was a kid. I kind of remember her being like, my brother was 14 driving a car, which again, like out there, I feel like was
he
normal.
Was the 14-year-old.
Yeah, no, I think her older brother was driving the car, but he was still probably 14, 16 years old, and she's got to be 10, 12, something like that, from what I remember. We did not flood the film with tons of eyewitnesses because that was something that I felt like we didn't need to overdo. a lot of people have asked like why we did not interview Linda Scarberry, who was the original Mothman eyewitness. The honest truth is, I did have conversations about interviewing her through a third party, and she just didn't want to do it. Like back then, she was not comfortable doing it. She did not want to be on camera. And so I just didn't force the issue. And so when, someone like Linda Scarberry was not willing to participate, I just didn't force the issue, because then, I had someone like Faye, who was another eyewitness, maybe not as like monumental or maybe not as like, recognizable because Linda was in John Keel's book. But to me, it served the same purpose in the sense that you're having an everyday regular person tell their Mothman story. And I just didn't need to flood the film with too many of those. Without hers, I do feel like the film would have been missing something with the fact that Linda Scarberry was not wanting to participate at that time. Years later, I did kind of hear, again, through like a third party, like my connection to her, that she did regret not participating in our movie, not because like the movie did well or anything, but I think she saw that, we did a good job with the film in representing the town and the people and the accuracy. And I think back then she was reluctant because she thought it was maybe going to be more exploitive. As more time goes by, it does become harder and harder to find living eyewitnesses of Mothman to hear their firsthand account and story. So this is an interview that I am looking forward to revisiting. Here is Faye Leport and her raw interview tape retelling her eyewitness account of Mothman.
And they all went across the river. Indians came over and they fought right there.
It's crazy.
Battle Point Pleasant.
There's the bottom of your frame. No, not good. With the fire. Okay. Just let me know whenever we're ready. Where? Good? Okay, to start, so I have it later. Can you just tell me your name and spell it for me?
Faye Leport. I was a DeWitt at the time, and it's FAYE LE capital PORT Leport.
So my documentary that I'm working on, it kind of covers everything that happened in Point Pleasant, the Mothman, the battle, kind of everything. But specifically, the things I want to talk to you, obviously, was about the Mothman, because I'd heard that you had actually witnessed it yourself when you were younger. Is that right?
Yes, I was one of the fifth witnesses to the Mothman. I was about 12 or 13 years old. But the officer that interviewed us when we went to the courthouse told us that we were the fifth witnesses to seeing the Mothman.
Can you tell me about your own personal sighting of the Mothman? Like what happened? Where were you? Can you try to remember as many details as possible and tell me what happened?
My brothers and I had decided to go to the movie that night over in Ohio to the Canaga Drive-In, which is still there today. And the movie we watched was about a white horse, and I was the one that wanted to go see that movie. And so that's how I remember a lot of it, because that was something I really wanted to do. And so from there, my other brother that was driving at the time, he was the only one driving, he was 15. He decided we was going to go out to the TNT area where the sightings had been seen. The very first one had been seen was all through the school, that a couple out there was out there making out at the TNT area, and everybody knew the couple that was in school. And we knew of them. We weren't friends with them. We just knew of them because they were classmates. And so we thought they was just making up a story because they got caught being out there, and the guy was engaged to someone else, and he was with another girl. So we feel, along with everybody else, that it was something they made up to try to cover being caught out there. So that's why my brother decided that he was going to go out there and just prove that that was a fake, and just to go back and tell the school and everything, because he liked to be, I guess, up on top of everything, and be the first one to disclose whatever true or fact or whatever it was. So after we left the movie, he said, I'm just going to go out there and prove it's just a Halloween hoax or somebody in a costume. Now, I don't remember if it was around Halloween or after Halloween or what, because being children, you really don't pay much attention to time lapse. But I do remember that he was saying that's what it was a Halloween costume somebody was in. He was going to go out there and prove that that's what it was. So that's how we wound up out there. From the movie, we went out there.
And second,
okay.
He's gonna wait for this man to come back.
Okay.
I think we'll be good in a second. We good? Okay, sorry about that. You were telling me that you were headed out to the TNT plant because your brother kind of wanted to put an end to this and kind of prove that there was nothing to it. Can you start from there?
My brother, Carlisle, and we called him Topper, he wanted to go out there and disprove that it was a fake, that the Mothman was out there because of the 2 kids in school being caught out there that night. And so after the movie we saw over in High, we drove out there, and it must have been probably around 11:30, because I believe we went to the movie about 9 o'clock or 9:30, and I think it let out about 11. Like I said, being children, you don't really pay attention to days or time lapses. And so it was dark, that's all I know, and probably close to 12, so I figure around 11 or 11:30. And we went driving up there in an old green 59 Ford, I believe is what it was. And if you don't know where it's at, you go straight out of Point Pleasant and you come to a road up there. It says where the fairgrounds are today. And you turn right there, and that's a straight stretch. And years ago, at that time, the kids from school would go out there and drag race because it was such a long, straight stretch. And it was not paved like the roads are today. It was gravel, but it wasn't full of holes or anything. So after we turned right there on that graveled road heading down there, we got about halfway when I noticed something was running along beside the car. Well, I thought I was seeing things when I turned and looked at it. And I looked at my brother and I said, "Did you see what I saw?" He said, "Yes, and don't look at it." I said, "Well, what is it?" And he said, "Well, I told you don't look at it." I said, "Well, hurry up, speed up." So I was hitting him on the leg to make him speed up. And I was kind of looking out of the corner of my eye at it the whole time. And it was running right beside the car, not flying, running. And it had red eyes. They were kind of big at the center, went up to a point. And they were the reddest eyes I have ever seen. They weren't glowing eyes, like some people might say. It was just something you can't describe how they were lit up. The whole eye was red and lit up, but it wasn't like a light or something. It was just, that's the only thing you saw was the eyes when you looked at it. It just was something so weird that just fixed all your attention on that. So I kept glancing at it and telling him to speed up. I was beating him on the leg, telling him, hurry up and speed up. So he was doing, I would say maybe 45, 50 long in there, going down that dirt stretch there. So I told him, I said, "It's still there, it's still there." So there's several roads there you can turn out of. And so he made a sudden left turn onto one of those roads. And he thought he would lose it by turning so quick and surprising it. But when he made the turn, it was still right there. So we went down that stretch a good piece, and it was still running beside the car. And there was nothing to do but either go straight and run through they had a lot of bunkers out there because they kept chemicals and warfare out there years ago. Dynamite was stored in. So had he kept going straight, he would run off the road and hit them. So he turned again. And when that turned, he thought if he whipped it around real fast, he would throw it off of us or something. But he turned around sideways in the road and slammed on brakes and stopped the car sideways in the road. And when he done that, That thing jumped right onto the hood of the car, squatted down and just looked at him and me, just one and the other, for just a few minutes, and then stood up and then jumped down off the car. And by that time, we were at the old factory that was there, which is about 4 or 5 stories high. I can't remember because, like I said, I was about 12, 13 years old. After it jumped off the hood of the car, it looked up there to that, and then it took off a run and jumped up there on the roof of that there factory. Not flew, jumped up there. Ain't no human could jump 4 stories high except Superman today. And when it got up there, it turned around like a human would, turned around, got itself situated and squatted down on her, kind of like roosted, I guess, because it kind of put its hands on its knees and sat there looking at us. And by that time, I observed that it had claws on its feet. How many toes, I don't know. And I saw the claws on its fingers. How many fingers, I don't know. But it sat there looking at us. Well, my brother said, well, look at that dumb thing. I said, I don't know how it got up there. So he got out of the car, and at that time, they used a lot of coal chunks to throw on the road along with the gravel. And he got out, and he was picking up those chunks of coal and throwing it up there at it. Well, he kept hitting kind of far off from it, so it just kept sitting there looking at us. And then he got a bigger chunk of coal, and I kept telling him, quick, get back in the car. That thing's going to get us. Get back in the car. And I was just bawling and carrying on. And I had a sister and 2 brothers that was in the car, younger than me and him. And when this thing first appeared beside of us, he told them to get down on the floor of the car. And my oldest sister was in there. She's not older than me. She was the oldest one back there. She kind of leaned over them to kind of cover them up, I guess, when they got on the floor of the car. So she saw it, but she lives down in Florida. And so she was covering them up, and they was carrying on and crying, and I was crying and carrying on. Let's go, leave it alone, let's go stop it. And he was still out there throwing coal chunks at it and going, shoo, shoo, like that. And when he picked up a bigger chunk and threw it up there, and it landed right next to its feet and rolled down off the tin roof of that building. When it did that, it stood up. And I thought, boy, it's going to come get us now. And I said, see what you done now? It's going to get us. You made it mad, and it's going to come and get us. So I said, get back in the car. Let's get out of here. Get back in the car. So when it stood up, he jumped back in the car and shut the door. And when it stood up, it looked at us for a little bit and then jumped down off of that building. And like I said, it was 4 or 5 stories high. Just like it jumped up there, it jumped down, no wings, and ran right by us here, probably about, I'd say, 6 feet from where the car was parked at it. Run right by us, and there was some hedges growing right there that divided the bunkers, each row of bunkers, and they were overgrown, probably about 6 or 7 feet high. They had never been trimmed back. And it jumped up to go over those there shrubberies or hedges there. And when it did, that's when it opened up its wings. And that was the first time we saw its wing. And it flew off into the dark of the night. Well, my brother, we took off after that. And I never saw it again. We tried to go back up there. And by then, the FBI had come in with the military and wouldn't let nobody up there. And we told them that we was one of them that saw it, and they still wouldn't let us in. We told them we just want to see if they caught it or anything. And they still wouldn't allow us to go in up there. And there was some men in suits, 2 of them. And the guard that we talked to, we told him, we want to go in there because we were one of them that saw that thing. So he talked to them, and they come over there. One of the men in suit come over to our car door and told us we can go in there. It was top military, and they was studying the contamination up there, and they didn't allow anybody in there. So we left there and went to the courthouse over here, to the police station, and told them what we saw up there. And the officer that took it down wrote it on a tablet, what all we said. And he said, well, I guess we're going to have to do something about it now because too many people seeing this thing. So I guess we're going to have to look into it. And he took our names down, and he said, y'all about one of the fifth witnesses that's claimed to see this thing. He said, I'll turn the report in, and that was the last we knew of it, because I think being kids, he just probably pitched it in the trash. But it was in the paper next couple of days about saying they caught it, and it was a crane, and that made us mad and everybody else mad that saw the thing. So we all started raising a fuss about it, so they retracted that and saying, well, then the only thing they could figure is maybe that some child, some bird, some animal got in those chemicals and morphinated from it or something. But they retracted that their Sand Hill Crane story, because I said everybody that saw it so far didn't like that.
What? Okay.
And everything that's in it, bugs and all.
Okay. So can you tell me, you were saying when you were in the car and you kind of looked out and you saw this thing. Can you tell me from that point on, like, what did you see when you looked out the window?
When I looked out the window and saw that thing running beside the window there, like the eyes, like I said, caught my attention more than anything else. But I remember it just from the waist down, because you could only see as far as the wind is on the door, what this thing looked like. Other than holding my attention by those eyes, I did see that it had, to me, features of a human, like it could have been a child or somebody in a suit, but it didn't have no beak like the statue they have here in Point Plaza. They put a beak on it, and it didn't have a beak. It had a nose like people had a nose, but you didn't see a point. It was kind of round with nostrils in it. I don't remember a mouth because, like I said, the eyes that's where your attention went to. But it either had little ears or those was little horns. I don't know which, like an owl would have. But the color of it, like I said, it was really dark at night, but I believe there was a moon because it was light enough that I could see it.
Hold on 1 second. One moment. So can you just tell me again, when you were in the car and you looked out the window, what did you see? Can you describe it for me?
The thing that I saw when I looked out the window of the car, I was kind of looking out the corner of my eye because I was scared to look again after I turned and saw it the first time. So I was trying to watch it out, stretching my eye over and looking at it that way. And my brother kept telling me, don't look at it, just stare straight ahead, don't look at it. But I couldn't help it, so I was turning my eyes to the corner to try to see this thing. And like I said, the eyes was the main thing that just held you looking at it. But I noticed, like, either it was a whitey with sand color in it. A lot of people have said it was gray, but now it was dark, but I believe the moon was out because it was light enough I could see this thing. But if it was gray or not, I don't recall gray. I recall a sandy color, the white with sand like in it. And if it had feathers or if it was fur, from what I can remember seeing of it, I would say it was more to feathers. But like I said, I didn't really pay that much attention to it because I was afraid to look. And I was just seeing it out of the corner of my eye, watching it as it was watching into the car. And, that's something I have never seen, and that's no way no human could run beside a car. And my brother, I know he was doing 40 or 45, maybe 50 miles an hour, and to make a sudden turn like that, if anything out there was on any kind of wires or something, it couldn't have been strung up all the way out there where we were traveling at, maybe a little distance out there by the TNT area itself where the factory was at. They might could have strung up something, but not with what this thing was doing. And like I said, it was running so close to the car that it couldn't use its wings to fly because it couldn't have opened up but one wing and no other wing was open. So it was running. And that's what got me, how something can run beside a car and keep up with. Even a human couldn't run along beside a car doing 30 miles an hour, let alone 40 or 50 miles an hour.
You said at some point it jumped on the hood of your car?
The second turn that my brother took trying to lose it was that real final sharp turn, and he turned sideways in the road. And reason why he had to do that, because there was like a garage type area there in front of the factory where they went up under there to load and unload coal. And so he didn't know if there was a way out if he went up under that, if you could come out the backside or not. So he knew he had to slam on the brakes and either turn around real quick or else either, back up and turn around. So he tried to, when he hit the brakes, it's turned sideways like you try to do, I guess, a spin and make your car heading back in the direction you came. So that's what he tried to do. But when he did it so fast and stopped the car, it was sideways in the road there, and he was trying to lose that thing running beside of us on the second attempt to try to throw it. And that's when the car stopped and it jumped on the hood of our car and squatted down and just looked at him and then me and him and me for, I'd say, just a few minutes.
And can you tell me, what were you feeling like? What were your emotions like when you were seeing this thing? Were you scared? Describe how you felt when you saw?
The whole time from the start, when this thing started running beside us, and we noticed it, I was terrified, and my brother, he kept trying to look at it and drive at the same time, and then I wasn't hysterical, but I was telling him, hurry up, hurry up, go faster, and I was hitting on his leg to make him give the car more gas, and my brothers and sisters in the back seat were crying and carrying on, and that's when he told Dan, my brother that was driving, told him, get down in the floor of the car, and hollered at my sister Betty to kind of cover him up and look out for him. And so we were all crying and carrying on like anybody would, adults or children, being scared. Like I said, I wouldn't say I was terrified or anything like that, but we were scared.
Were you surprised when you actually saw it? That it was like, now, kind of before you went out there, it was kind of like a joke, and it was kind of like, you thought it was a hoax maybe, and then now you go out there and you find out that this thing's real. Can you tell me, like, were you shocked? Because, the night before you kind of went there kind of as a joke, and all of a sudden it shows up being real. Can you tell me about that?
My brother thought that, by going out there, he'd try to disclose that was all fake and a hoax or a Halloween costume people carrying on out there from school. He never mentioned anything about it after we actually saw what we were going out there for. He's the type of person that he's really an authority on everything. And that's why my daddy named him Topper. He's very smart, and and a lot of things he really proves, the fact or fiction of it. And I think because when he finally saw it, and he knew when it jumped up on top of that big factory building, that no human could done that. I think he knew then that there was no way he could disprove that this thing was not a human. So he didn't mention nothing anymore about, trying to it being fake or anything. And with the excitement of it, I think he kind of really forgot it because it really actually happened so sudden that when we were on our way home, I think he finally was trying to go over everything, see if there was some possible way that could have been done with maybe movie props at that time or something. But back then, movies is nothing advanced like they are today. And so even if there was a movie crew out there doing something like that, or somebody with access to movie equipment couldn't have done nothing like that. And he knew it. So he was kind of talking with the rest of us, well, what if they'd done this? And then we would say, well, how could it when it was done this way or that way? So to this day, he will not talk about this because he couldn't prove that it was a fake and he don't know what it was. So he don't like talking about it because of that. And he tells everybody, that they should just leave it alone. That's in the past and we don't know what it is and just forget it. But that he didn't like it because he couldn't prove what it was.
And how was your brother reacting when he saw it that night? Was he scared too? How was he reacting?
My brother, he's always been a laid back person because he's just so skeptical of everything. Nothing really frightens him because he's looking at it in the aspect of trying to diagnose it more than being afraid of it. So I think the way he was acting that night, I knew he was a little afraid because the way he yelled at my other brothers and sisters, get down and floor a car. It was a tone that you don't brook no argument in it. And I could tell that there was some danger in his voice when he done that. And when he jumped back in the car after throwing rocks at it up on top of the roof there, I could tell he was scared there. But through it all, like I said, I know my brother, he don't show emotions like that very good because he's too skeptical of everything. He's trying to analyze everything rather than be afraid of it.
Can you tell me again how the thing, kind of after jumping on your car, it actually got off and just leaped up in the air on top of the TNT plant? Can you tell me about how it did that, and then about how high up it was, like how many stories that would have been?
The old factory that all this took place on, they've tore it down long since, and I thought it was 5 stories high, but I've seen pictures since then, and I believe it was only 4 stories, but if you count the basement, of course you don't see that, but I really thought it was 5 stories, but like I said, as a child, you don't really take notice of things, and it was 4 stories high, but still that's a good distance, and that thing, when it was on the hood of our car, it just jumped off the car and just went not at a run, but just kind of like, like a bird or any other thing would just kind of run a little bit before they'll take off flying. It just kind of run a little bit and jumped up on that building. No wings opened or nothing. It just leaped up on top of the building. They're like it leaped up on top of the car, like it was no effort at all to do that.
Yeah. Can you tell me, after witnessing the Mothman, a lot of people have said that they've had weird things happen to them afterwards. Can you tell me, after seeing this thing, has it changed your life at all? Did it change anything for you?
After all this happened, I've been in another state for about 30 years. I left.
Changing something.
Oh, okay.
Can you tell me the night of, the night you witnessed this thing? Did that change your life at all? How were things different for you afterwards?
After I saw this, we didn't think much about it other than trying to keep up on with, trying to discover what it was through the other people that saw it in the papers and talk all around town, trying to find out what it was. And then, like I said, the FBI came in with the military and kind of hushed things up about it, and nothing else more was said about it other than it never died down because I guess because it was really never proven what it was. That's probably why today it has never died down. If people could have been shown what that was, well, then it would have been over and gone with. But because it just disappeared and nobody ever saw or heard anything from it again, that left it going on and on and on. I left the state and was out of state for about 30 years and just come back. Over the years, it never done anything to me. Now, I know some people, they had a trauma from it, but me and my brothers have seen so much in our life. As kids, we roamed around like little Indians through woods and everything like that. We have seen a lot of things in our life. There's no explanation for none of it. And so this was just something else that, we saw. It scared us at the time, but we just brushed it off our shoulders like kids do. We weren't traumatized from it. We just would like to know what it really was and probably never will. Now, they say people actually came in contact with it, had premonitions and stuff like that. I do have that, and I've had it really strong for years. But I don't know if that's what give this to me or what, because a lot of people in my family have it. It's not just been, and these other ones in my family never saw this thing. So what I believe it comes down from, we are one of I think the 6th or 7th great-grandfather was Chief Cornstalk. So we're direct descendant from him. My family we are Indians. And the Indians saw spirits and talked with the spirits and stuff like that, and they walked in the spirit world all the time. And so they're open to anything like that. And I think that's why all of us, because everybody in my family's got it. Some real strong, some a little bit. And I'm one of them that's really strong. And my oldest sister has it stronger than me, but you lose it when it passes down to another one. It's like you pass it down. There's a leader or something that has it to oversee the family or something like that. And when they get to a certain age, they start passing it down to the next in line that's, I guess, susceptible to the feelings of whatever's out there, I guess. I don't know. But as for changing my life, no, that was just something else that we just experienced in our lifetime.
Do you think that the Mothman was anybody related to Cornstalk?
People have said in their statements and in the newspapers too that they believe that this thing was Chief Cornstalk's son that came back to fulfill the curse that was put on Point Pleasant. Some say it was Saul on the bridge at the time that a day or so or something before the bridge fell. And they say that the nickname for his son was Red Hawk, and that's where the eyes come from, like that. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know nothing about that. If he fulfilled the curse, a lot of it was a lot of coincidence there that a certain time of 13 months or 13 days or 200 days to a T or something, the bridge fell. I do know that I was supposed to be on that bridge that day when it fell, and something told me not to get on it. And I told my father every Friday faithfully at 6 o'clock we went across that bridge to the grocery store, never failed. But it was real cold and ugly that day, and we've always went in snow and everything else before to the store. But I just had a feeling that, don't go. And some just kept telling me, don't go that day. So my daddy kept saying, well, get ready and we'll go to the store. I said, well, I really don't want to go. I don't think we can wait till tomorrow, which was Saturday. I said, we can wait till tomorrow and go. By then we'll see what it's going to do. I said, it's icy. It's been snowing all day along with sleet and rain. And it was like 28 degrees. And I said, I really don't want to go out there in that this late of the evening. I said, let's just wait. We got enough stuff. We only went to the store once a week then. And I told him, I said, we got stuff that will be fine till about noon tomorrow, and then we can get ready and go down about 1 o'clock tomorrow. He kept asking me 3 or 4 times. I said, Daddy, finally, I said, I just don't feel right about going. I feel like something's going to happen and we don't need to go. And it hadn't been 30 minutes after I said that. He said, well, all right. And he went in there and sat down and turned on the TV. And there was the 6 o'clock news telling about the bridge falling. And we would have been right on it.
Hey, that's weird.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people have argued over what the Mothman was. Some people thought it was an angel. Other people thought it was a pterodactyl. Some people thought it was like an alien. You witnessed it firsthand. What do you feel it was?
I've tried over the years trying to figure out what exactly was that thing that we saw that night. The statue they have here, like I say, they depict a moth because that's where they got the Mothman. But it, as I said, I didn't see no beak on it, and it didn't have moth wings. It had bird wings, and that the statue has moth wings on. Now, it did have a moth-type face. If you look at a moth, it's kind of round like our heads are round, and it has like a little nose, but it's not a pointed nose, and it has nostrils on it, and you just can't see a mouth. And like I said, I don't remember seeing the mouth on that thing, but like ours, we have lips, but see, if something just had a mouth and no lips, you wouldn't see the mouth till it opened or something. What it was, I've tried to really think on it and try to figure it out. I don't believe any kind of chemicals could have mutated something, a bird or anything to be like that. I just, most time when you see mutation, it's they got 3 legs, 2 arms, or 2 heads or something like that in mutation. You don't have a perfect specimen of a thing there. 2 legs or 2 wings or a head or something like that. Mutation is extra, usually extra something the other. I don't know if it was before this or after that, or like I said, we saw so much in our lifetime, running around through the woods, little kids late at night bringing cows in 3 o'clock in the morning. We witnessed what possibly was a spaceship one time. And like I said, to this day, I don't remember if it was before the Mothman or after the Mothman. So we don't know what that was. I think that it was either something like that from another.
Sorry, what was that? Okay, can you tell me about, you said you thought once maybe you saw an unidentified flying object. Can you tell me about that?
My brothers and I were having to get the cows in. My daddy sent us up there about 3 o'clock in the morning, bring the cows in so he could milk them at 5 o'clock. And there were about 3 miles of woods that we had to go up in. Little kids that I wouldn't send my child in if he was 20 years old, but my daddy sent me and my brothers up there to get him. And plus we had to go to school too. So he'd get us up 3 o'clock to go after them cows. And they'd go as far back to the very end of that field that was owned by the man of the farm that we lived on. And chasing those cows in all hours of the morning, you were up and down the hills, and we just went up this one hill and was coming down the side of it. And we stopped the rest before we went up the next hill, and there was a pond in between there. So we stopped and was sitting looking at the pond to catch our breath. And we were sitting there talking. I don't recall exactly what it was. It was just chit chat or something. I don't know what it was. It wasn't nothing important. And it was dark that night. My brother had the flashlight. It was the only flashlight we had, one. And while we were talking, next thing I know, the hillside lit up where we were sitting at, and it was such an intense light. We thought for a minute, well, the moon came out. So we didn't pay much attention, but it just was so bright that it felt like it was beating down on you. And it was set.
The light came on. You felt it was so bright just because of the car. From there, you said you thought it was train.
Yeah, we thought the moon had finally come out because it was dark that night. I don't recall any stars or anything out. I know it was really dark. And usually we didn't even have a flashlight, but my brother did have a flashlight, the oldest brother. And so we were sitting there waiting to rest up before we took the other hill. And this light come on, and it was just so strong that we were talking, and it just feels like it was the sun was right over you. But we thought it was the moon, and we didn't think nothing about it, so we didn't pay attention. But it kept beating down on us, so finally it just felt like something was laying on top of your head. It was so strong. So my brother stood up and he says, I don't know what that is. And he looked up. He says, that's a spaceship. I'm out here. And he took off and left. And I stood up and I said, well, what is it? And I put my hand up like you would if you look at the sun. And I said, well, what is it? Y'all wait on me, and hollered at him, you know. And I looked up like they did, and you could see a perfectly oval shape. No sound, no engine, no wings, no helicopter blade turning or nothing. It had just come over top of us while we were sitting there talking. We could have heard it if it had been any kind of a spaceship, spacecraft, or anything that we have today or back in that time. Now, today we got stealth fighters that they say you don't hear them. Well, they didn't have that out that many years ago. That's just something that's come out the past couple of years. So what this was, I saw it, my brother saw it, and it was a perfect shape of an oval right above us with a light shining down on us so intense that it was just like the sun was beating down on top of you. And you could almost have to like hold it up so you could look at it. And when you looked up, that's what you saw was the bottom shaped like an oval. Well, they done took off and left me, so I took off too, finally. And I don't know to this day what that was. And like I said, I don't remember before or after the Mothman. So with that happening and the Mothman, I could be more tempted that it's something from another planet, or else, like I said, the only other thing that I would say it would be is maybe the government had something they was testing out and didn't want anybody to know about it. But I don't think anybody could have created something like that thing. I don't think they could have took anything and put shots or chemicals on it and made something like that. And I don't think any kind of mutation could have made something like that. It had to come from somewhere, and they grabbed it and hushed it up in such a big hurry that I feel today that had something to do with being aliens. I really do. And I know there's something else out there. God said he created the heavens and the earth. So I don't mean that we're the only thing here. There's other things out there. Heavens, we say, are heavenly bodies.
This podcast is a companion piece to the original feature-length documentary film from 2011 of the same title. If you're enjoying this podcast, we encourage you to see the film that started it all by visiting www.eyesofthemothman.com.
Sorry about
Noisy.
that. So, and you started with about you were quoting God created heaven and the earth.
God created the heavens and the earth. It says heavens. It doesn't say heaven. It says heavens and the earth. So I take that there's other planets out there, and that's what he means besides the earth. And if there's life on this one, why not the others? It just may not be like ours because each one has to be a certain way for whatever that planet's got on it. And so I feel, that there's something out there that we don't know about. And I think we've over years and years, people have seen these things haphazardly, and the government's grabbed it and hushed it up and probably studied it and dissected it and kept it all hushed up. But I believe there's things out there that we don't know about, and I think they have come to Earth and being found out, either seen or being captured by the government.
What color was the thing you saw in the sky?
That night we were sitting on the hill. When we looked up, it was the shape of that thing was oval-like, and it was kind of like grayish-like color, like you would see the shadow of an eclipse of the moon or sun. It's like a gray type shadow. That's kind of what it was like when we looked up and saw that. But the light was so bright, it's just like you was trying to look at the sun. But you could see that their oval shape, and it was kind of like a grayish-like color. But all we could see was just that. You couldn't see anything above that because the light was just too intense.
When you witnessed the Mothman, what was its reaction to you? Did you feel threatened? Do you think that the monster was afraid? Did it look like it was aggressive? Was it more of like a man or like an animal?
That night we saw the Mothman, I've wondered, we were scared of it. And I said, my brother, I think he was, but he wouldn't show it because he was so skeptical. We weren't terrified of it. We were just, scared. But it acted like it was quizzical of us. It didn't act like it was scared of us. It didn't act like it was going to do anything to us. It acted like it was just more or less just trying to figure out what in the heck we were and what were we doing. I think somewhere's out there it might have had it where it was hiding or nesting or whatever out there. And so I think we were in its territory. And I think it was just trying to find out what we were and determine if we were any danger to its habitat or itself. People have thought, well, if there's one, there's probably another one. I think if there had been another one, it would have been aggressive and probably been on attack mode like anything else is. When there's two, you're looking out for the other one. I believe it was by itself. I believe it was the only one. Now, people have said they've seen it in other countries even, in other states. I don't know. I know it originated here, and then after that, I think people left, and then, I saw it here and there. I don't think this thing was anywhere else. It might have been, but thinking of what it was and everything, like I believe it was something from another world. It could have been other places landed and showed up there. But I know it never was seen here again, and I believe the United States government got it. And the shape of it, they claimed, was a bird, a crane. It wasn't like that. I've seen birds, and they got long legs and long necks and long beaks and stuff like that. This didn't have long legs, and it didn't have a long beak. It was a shape I think, like my brother was believing somebody was in a costume. It could have well been the way it looked. Like if somebody put almost like a white sheet on them, maybe a feather type white sheet, because it had a round head and it had little arms like the dinosaur Tyrannosaurus Rex, and they were not attached to the wings. Now, a lot of the things they draw of this Mothman, they put his hands attached to the wings, like the pterodactyls in prehistoric time, but its arms was separate from it. It was not attached to its wings. The wings was on its back, so it had its arms free. I noticed the arms because when it was running beside me, it had its arms like this. It wasn't going like back and forth like we would when we run. We kind of go like that. Its arms was just like this, bent at the elbows. And they were little arms. They weren't great big long arms like its legs or anything like that. But they were proportioned to its body. They weren't midget type arm. They were proportioned to its body. And
Okay, changing the tape.
okay. Leave today anyway.
Yeah.
But she could tell you too. Now the two brothers that she was leaning over, they don't know nothing. They don't remember. They don't remember because they were younger than us. We're all about 2 years between us. Yeah.
We good? Just let me know when. Can you tell me a bit about the eyes of the Mothman?
When I looked out the window of the car, when I first saw it, the eyes was the first thing that caught you, and they were the main thing that held your attention to them the whole time. a lot of people said they glowed. I can't even call it glowing, but they were lit up somehow or another that there was no mistaking. You couldn't see the eyes. And it was just a red that you can't, you say red, but you know, it's not the red that you can say red about. Got a bug here.
You're saying it's red, but not like red as you think.
Yeah, it's kind of between a orange and a red put together, and it's kind of like a fiery type red like that. And I guess that's why everybody says they kind of glowed or something, because of the fiery color of them. And they were big at the center of where the nose was, and they went up to a point like the Oriental people their eyes go to a point. And they were big. It wasn't like the size of our eyes. It was great big and went up to a point like that. And moths and stuff do have great big round, big eyes with a bunch of little eyes in there. But this went up to like our eyes in an oval shape, but it went up to a peak there. And the biggest part was down towards the nose bridge. But it went up to a point like that, and just red like you've never seen any kind of red before.
You kind of answered this before, but I'm just going to ask you again. After the Mothman was spotted more frequently, there were professors at universities that tried to say it was a sandhill crane. How do you feel about this? Because you were a witness yourself, and you grew up in this area, and you kind of, like you said, you know the wildlife in this area. How did you feel when people started saying that? Were you insulted by that? Was that kind of just ridiculous?
When they put it out in the paper after we reported our sightings of the Mothman, they were the government that had come down here and the military, they caught this crane up there. Supposedly they caught it. And they took a picture of it and put it in the paper. And this is what they said everybody saw. Well, that made everybody like us that saw it mad. And at that time, I think there was only about 7 of us so far, because we were the 5th, and there was 2 others after us when they claimed they caught it. And when they put that in the paper, it was like, they didn't believe what we said. And I knew they didn't when the officer took it down, because we were just kids, and a grown person, that's just the wild ideals of children, and I'm not going to listen to it. But they'd already had previous reports of the couple that was caught out there, plus 2 or 3 others before us. And so then when we told them that, they thought, well, somebody's starting something and trying to make something off of it. So I can understand the police department brushing us off and not taking it serious or anything like that. But then after... there was some more after us that saw it, and they started checking into it, and then the government come down and the military, and they supposedly said they caught it, and they showed the picture of the crane. Well, that's just like saying you're stupid. You're dumb. You've conjured up this stupid thing, and all it is a bird. Well, everybody knows what a crane looks like. If even a child that's ever seen one in a picture or whatever knows what a crane looks like. They got long legs and they got a long neck and a long beak. Well, then they said, well, it wasn't the normal crane then, but yet that's what they put in the paper was the sandhill crane. And so that made everybody mad that had just started telling them that they saw it and was putting their comments to the police and to the newspaper. So they retracted that because we raised a fuss about it. We did, because it insulted us as being ignorant, and I know we're a backward state with hillbillies and all that, so I know that's what they were trying to put it down, it didn't know what we seen. But as I said, we grew up out living in the woods, tramping through them from anybody from time they could walk. You go through these woods just like Indians. You live in them, and if you're around them, you know them like the back of your hands. If you're a child and you play in them, and you see what animals are up in there, or you know of them. And for them to say that that's what that was when we know what we saw didn't look nothing like that. So then they come up with it was a crane from, I believe, England or something like that, that looked more like a human. He was so big. He was about 30 or 40 pounds, and they put a picture of that in the paper. That was not it either. But that was close to it. That's the only thing I've ever seen close to what I saw. But it had a beak also, and this thing did not have a beak. Neither did it have little hands, because that thing just had wings that they showed to that other crane. So I told my brother, I said, all they're trying to do is just cover up what they found out there and don't want us to know about. I said, but we know what we saw, and so does everybody else that saw that. We know what we saw. And so somebody, I believe it was the Scarberries, I don't know, put it in the paper that, they can say whatever they want to. We know what cranes look like, and we know what that picture was that they showed of a foreign crane that we weren't familiar with, and none of them look like that thing we saw. And they could say whatever they want to. We all saw it with our own eyes. What it was, we don't know, but it was not no crane, and that insulted our intelligence, for trying to say it was.
So in a lot of cases like this, where this happened, like in other places where it's happened, you have a sighting that's kind of an unbelievable monster or a creature, and many times it's like one person that sees it. The sighting lasts only like a couple of seconds and then it's over. And here, the sightings of the Mothman are often only like several feet away. Your own sighting was only, right in front of your face. That's kind of unique and different, and that was happening kind of all over this area, being seen by people, by being seen by like groups of people and really close distance away. Can you talk about that being important? Because it's not like you just saw a light in the sky and, it's not like you see a shooting star and you go, oh, that's a UFO. What you saw was right in front of your face. Can you talk about that being important? That there's kind of no doubt about what you saw because how close you were to it.
As time went by and I've been out of state, over the years, I've told my children about it. I have two, and my husband about it. And when I tell them, I wonder, did I really see this thing, or, was it a child's thing, and I've wondered about it. And then, I remember it to a T, and I said, I couldn't possibly have imagined all that. And to top it off, it wasn't just me that saw it. I might say I'm crazy, or I saw something that wasn't really there and I imagined it, but it wasn't just me that saw it. There was 5 of us, but the other 2 was on the floor of the car, as I said, so they really didn't see it. But so that left 3 of us in that car that night that saw that. So I can't say that, well, I'm imagining things, because they saw it too. But since I came back, like I said, it's been so long now, I've got with my sister and my brother, and I said, did we really see that? I said, now you tell me what you saw and what you remember of it, and they'll tell me. And it's exactly what happened, what I remembered. So, and I haven't been around none of them for this to coincide our stories here, Yeah, no, it happened like this. No, it happened like each one of them said. I talked to them each on their one-on-one. They weren't, we all 3 together so we could, no, that ain't the way it happened this way, and change their stories, what I'm trying to say. What they said is like I said, and it's the same today as it been all them years ago. They always say truth never changes, but a lie you keep forgetting it and adding on or changing it or whatever. And they say it the way I remember it. They say it exactly the way what they did at the time when they were there. And so that's helped me realize that, this really happened, because for a fact that I wasn't the only one. There was others that saw it too. And the other people that saw it that wasn't in my family, to this day, they swear by it too. Now, people can say, oh, it's just a bunch of stories concocted and everything, but, you see things happen basically at a split second, and it's over, and you don't know whether you saw it or not. But this, I would say, lasted a total 30 to 40 minutes. It was long enough that you remembered it. It was long enough that you knew every detail. I don't care if you were a child. It played itself out long enough that there was a memory there installed because of it. A fleeting second or something you just saw, like a flying saucer happening in like the one we saw. It was going so fast. Had we not been sitting there talking, I wouldn't have probably remembered that. But I knew it was dark and that happened. And that's like this with this Mothman. It lasted so long. There's no way a fleeting second you could forget. But this lasted so long that you remembered it.
Can you tell me how close was this thing to you when you saw it? You don't have to, tell me the whole story again, but just tell me, how close this was when you saw it, and the fact that, being as it was so close, there's no mistaking what it was.
I would say that thing was about probably about three feet between me and it. That's how close it was to me when I first saw it beside the car, because the only thing was stopping it, the division there was the car door that separated. It was on the other side of the car door. So I would say maybe not 3 feet, but just a distance of my sitting in the seat and then the door there and then it on the other side of the door.
And with that in mind, can you just tell me, there's not really any question of knowing what it was because it was so close. You know what I mean? Like, because it was so close to you, you could see it clearly. It wasn't, there's no misunderstanding of what you saw because it was so close.
By it being that close to me, right next to me, like I said, I was looking straight ahead, but I was looking out of my corner of my eye. I got a good picture of what it looked like from the waist up. Anything below that I couldn't see. And when it was on the hood of the car, I got an even better picture of what it looked like. And then when it jumped down and sat up there looking at us on the roof of that building, that was only, I'd say, just 4 or 5 feet in front of us. That's how close it was, sitting on the roof of the building. So with the time limit there and my looking at it, my brother seeing it, there was no doubt. We had plenty of time to analyze it and look at it. Are we seeing this or are we not seeing this? And so we were, because there's plenty of time there and close enough to it that it wasn't something you had to imagine off in the distance. What is it? It was close enough as just across the street to you. And you could definitely see something like that and know what it looks like and know what things are about it.
Can you tell me about some of the other people that were seeing the same thing that you saw? They were all different types of people. They were police officers that saw it. There were everyday people. There were people that, were honest people, church-going people. Can you just tell me about, there was a wide variety of people that saw this thing, but all of them were really trusted people.
The people that saw this thing besides me and my brother and sister, I don't know them. Only the couple that was in school that was out in the TNT area and when it jumped on their car. I don't know them to say what kind of people they are. I just know we went to school with them. The other people that claimed to have seen it also, I don't know who they are. I've heard their names. I don't know them because I left real early. And so a lot of people around here I don't know. And at that time, the ones that was seeing it was just the only ones that was in school that we knew. And they weren't somebody I could say I know what kind of people they were.
Okay. If this whole thing, the weird thing is this is kind of a mystery that's lasted for a long time and it's never been solved. If this mystery could be solved tomorrow by like a means of science or religion or the unknown, would you care where the answer came from as long as it was some type of answer? Like, would you like some type of closure to this?
I've often thought that, people have asked me, well, what do you think it is? And, I tell myself, well, I've got, a couple or speculation what I think it is. I said, but I don't know what it was. I go to church and I believe very much in the Lord. And by going to church, people at churches ask me, well, you're supposed to believe in God and all that. And you don't think God would do something like that. So where does that stand with your religion, And so that's where I say about the heavenly bodies that God created the heavens and the earth. I just don't.
You say, would you like, after all this time, would you like finally an answer to?
I have had people tell me, well, wouldn't you like to know what it was? And yes, I would, but I would like to be from a reputable, something that they can say this is definitely what it is. I stand behind it. I got proof of it. To this day, I would like to really be able to see it, know where it's at, what they done with it. I still believe the government got it. And I would just like for them to disclose it. And I would, if it's still around, I'd like to see it, before I die in this world. Or maybe when I die, I will know what it is. But, yeah, I would like to really know what it was. I really would. To just put the wondering there, because I've wondered over years what it really was.
Well, that's fun. Does it sound bad much? Do you remember who the woman named Mary Hyre was? She was like a reporter in Point Pleasant that was kind of, whenever someone saw Mothman or something, they would kind of go to her and talk to her. She was kind of like somebody that people would come to trust. Do you remember her?
When we went to the police and reported it, my brother did all the talking, and we just stood there and verified, yes, that's the way it happened, done this. And when we went to school, we told, we had a school reporter, and my brother did the talking to them. We never went to the paper and had anything we said put in the paper or talked to any reporters or anything like that. Like I said, my brother did all the talking to the police officer while we were standing there, and he'd question us and ask us. But for us to go talk to anybody, we didn't, other than at school, the school reporter, and they put a paper out, and I think the newspaper got with them, and it got in the paper. But for us to actually talk to reporters, we didn't do that because none of them asked us. We didn't know any. We only came to town once a week, and we made no attempt to go do nothing like that because we were just kids. We didn't really know to go do that anyway.
Do you remember that woman at all, though? Living when you were
I
living
don't
there?
remember at the time the reporter, they said that everybody talked to.
Yeah,
I don't know her because we didn't even take the Point Pleasant paper. Our neighbor did, and they'd bring it and give it to us, but we couldn't afford the paper, so we didn't take it. And the only way I knew it was in the paper was people showed it to us and everything. So we didn't know anything about anybody that reported for it.
Other things that were going on in the town, people were also seeing UFOs, and they were also reporting kind of like strange problems with their electronics, like beeps and phone problems and things like that. Do you remember that at all going on in town?
Back at that time when we saw this thing, we just lived on a farm that my daddy worked for. It wasn't our farm. He worked for someone, and he milked cows. We didn't even have water in the house, nor did we have a bathroom in the house, and we certainly didn't have a phone, and we didn't even have a TV. So when the police officer questioned us, he thought we'd heard this from everybody else that saw it. And I said, we don't even have a TV. It was later when my daddy got the TV and brought it home. When all this started up, he brought home a little small TV, and he was the only one that was right loud to watch it. And that's when he turned it on and saw the news about the bridge falling. But we didn't have any means really to know what was going on down here unless when we come down here. We'd come down here every weekend to the store. And so we didn't have a phone to get in touch with anybody. The only electric we had was a light bulb hanging down from the ceiling. So they said this thing caused all kinds of problems and stuff like that, but we didn't have nothing like that. If it did anything like that, we wouldn't have had it anyway.
Okay. A lot of people believe that the Mothman and the UFOs that were being witnessed here had something to do with one another. They thought they kind of went hand in hand. Can you talk a little bit about that? That, the people in town, they were seeing the Mothman, they were seeing UFOs, and they thought they both had something to do with one another. They were kind of the same thing.
The UFO that we saw, I get if that's what it was, and I believe it was. There wasn't long after that they sighted up towards 35 where we lived at, or farther up in a little town called Pliny up there, West Virginia. They sighted a UFO up there, and somebody supposedly saw what was in that thing, and they called it the Braxton County Monster. Well, everybody laughed about that because this Mothman thing had just come out, and everybody thought that was just another something to try to top the Mothman theory. So somebody come up with that. But the person that saw it was supposedly a reputable person, and everybody knew he wouldn't have made up something like that. So I don't know.
Okay, just two more questions.
Okay.
What's that? Some witnesses of these strange, unusual things that were going on in Point Pleasant have said that they were later confronted by what they say were some kind of government official or officials. Were you personally approached by anybody from the government or any type of contact from anyone after your sighting?
Everybody was talking about the time this happened that they saw supposedly men in black. And they've asked me about it. Did I see the men in black that everybody was talking about? And I told them, I said, not until we went up there to try to get back in there after the government took it over in the military, did we see anybody in any kind of suits. And it was two guys that was standing up there with a military guy that was blocking the entrance of anybody coming in there. And we talked to him, and he motioned for one of them to come over to the car, and he told us we couldn't come in there because it was contamination in there, and that's why nobody's allowed in there. Other than that, that's the only thing I know of that was probably through the government, because them and the military, and whether it was a cover-up, I really believe it was, and the men in black theory having anything to do with it. I think that's just all it was. It's just those was officials sent out to just quarantine the area and just check it out for themselves and report back and see what was going on or anything.
So I'm going to ask you a similar type of question. So you eventually tried to go back to the TNT plant to see the Mothman again. Can you tell me what happened when you went to go do that? If you could start it with, we wanted to go back to the TNT plant, something like that.
We wanted to go back there and just see what was going on, me and my brothers, about a few days after we saw that thing, to see if we could see it again. And when we went back there, that's when it was blocked off, and they wouldn't let you go in there. And the two men that was in black, one of them come over and told us we couldn't go in there. After the military guy went and hollered, motion for him to come over and tell us. But my brother was doing the driving. He told me we once saw that thing, and we wanted to kind of look around and see if they caught it, and they wouldn't let us go in there because we had to leave.
That's good. What's one more question? Do you think the people of Point Pleasant today still want answers to this story, even though it's, 50, 60 years old now? Do people still want answers to this? And do you think they deserve them after all this time?
Like myself, I would like to know what that thing was, and I believe everybody else that saw it would like to just know. Maybe some of them wouldn't because, they were traumatized by it, but I believe most of them would like, if the government did it and would finally disclose it. I think they should, because, I know it would put down a good legend here in this little town, but I think we need to know. And it's been long enough now that they could let the so to speak, cat out of the bag now and give everybody some kind of peace of mind satisfaction on the whole thing, but I doubt if it ever will, maybe, but I really doubt it. Maybe one day might leak out. I don't know, but I think they should. It's been long enough. And there's no reason now why they can't say it, other than it would prove the government does hide stuff from us, and they probably don't want anybody knowing, especially that.
Is there anything that I didn't ask you about your story or the Mothman or Point Pleasant that you think is important that I forgot? Is there anything I didn't ask you that's really important to this whole story that you think I left out?
Most of everything's been said, I think, about the whole story. I've told it just as much as, as I possibly can.
Okay.
And it's the same way every time I tell it. And, I don't forget none because it's the same way. And you did pretty good about asking.
Okay. Okay. I think we're good.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Eyes of the Mothman, the podcast. For more information about our program, or to find out where you can watch the original documentary film or purchase a limited edition signed DVD copy, please visit www.eyesofthemothman.com.